you guys, and welcome to the Laundry Chat podcast, a place where we help each other sort out life's laundry. My name is Molly Marco, and before we get into the episode, I just want to say a few housekeeping things, sort of. I, first of all, want to thank you if you decided to tune in and listen to this. Again, I'm still amazed at the people who say that they listen, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, oh my gosh, it still is just like amazing to me. So thank you for listening. If you are listening, or if you have been listening for a while, if you could leave a review, that would be awesome. I haven't asked you guys to do this in a while, but it really would just like help me out, and let me know that people are listening. If you don't, if I don't know. So feel free to leave a review, if you're listening on iTunes, or if you're listening on YouTube right now, leave something in the comment. I'd love to hear from you and talk with you. And just so I know that I'm not the only one sitting in this laundry. Literally, I'm sitting in laundry right now on my bed. So that would be great. And then another housekeeping thing is, let's see, I would love for you, if you follow me on Instagram or if you're on YouTube, to also comment or let me know of people you'd love interviewed or talked to, or if you'd love to be on the podcast. If you're listening to this and you're like, I have a story that I need to share, message me, let me know. Don't be shy. I really am trying to get, I feel like I say this a lot, but I'm really trying to get more guests on the podcast. I want more people. I want to hear more voices and opinions, so feel free to do that. And the last thing is just another thank you for the response on the last episode of the podcast about my wig. I honestly, the support that you guys have given me and said to me, and just, I honestly was expecting really bad comments. I was expecting people to be against it and think that I'm a hypocrite and think that I'm, I was really scared. Honestly, when I say that, I was really, really scared to talk about it, and to share it. I honestly considered just like hiding it and not letting anyone know that I was wearing a wig. But I just wanted to thank you, for just being so supportive and understanding of kind of what I'm going through and the reasons why I'm doing this. And a lot of you feel the same way. So, again, thank you. And if you haven't listened to those episodes, if you're on iTunes, scroll around, YouTube, I have a playlist. So, yes. But right now, we're going to get into the podcast for today. So today, I wanted to talk about what God has been called to me. What's God's name to me? And I hope that this makes sense to you, and I hope that I hope I can talk about this in a way that makes sense and in a way that will apply to your life. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the name Jehovah Jireh. That's another name for God. So God has a whole bunch of names, and I think with any person, you need to know their name before you get to know them. You need to know what people call them, like who they are. And so with God, we call him God a lot, but he has many other names. I don't remember how many names he has, but he has a lot of names. And one of them is Jehovah Jireh. And there's a song that I learned in Sunday school. That's when I first heard that name of God. And the song goes, I can't sing very well, and I'm not going to try really, but it goes, Jehovah Jireh, my provider, his grace is sufficient for me, Jehovah Jireh. And there's more to it, but so that song, I remember singing it. I remember loving that song. I loved it, and I loved the name Jehovah Jireh. I loved that was another name for God. I thought it was so cool. And I guess lately that has come up a lot with this whole Texas situation. If you don't know, I'm moving to Texas in October. My friend Ellie, who I'm moving with, is already there. And throughout this whole Texas situation, we have just been so blessed. God has continued to provide. And it was like midway through the whole, Texas thing that I was like, oh my gosh, Jehovah Jireh, like God is providing like for all of our needs that we have and above and beyond. And so I just, whenever something good would happen, I'd be like, Jehovah Jireh, like God provides. And so, yeah, so that's been going on for the past couple of months. But I wanted to really look at why, like, where that name came from and what it actually means. So, sorry if you can hear my clicking from my computer. Let's see. So, you can probably hear this. But the first time Jehovah Jireh was mentioned in the Bible was in Genesis 22, chapter 22. So this, if you don't know the story, was about a man named Abraham, and God asked him to do something. And I'm actually going to read this out loud to you guys, in case you haven't heard the story or it's been a while that you have. If you want, I guess you could like speed past it if you're like, I don't really feel like having Molly read the Bible to me, but I would highly recommend you listen to it because I've heard the story a million times, but it really brought to light a lot of things that I had missed before. So hang on one second while I check if my thing was recording in the first place. It was. Okay. So Genesis 22, 1 through 18. After all this, God tested Abraham. God said, "Abraham." "Yes," answered Abraham, "I'm listening." He said, "Take your dear son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I'll point out to you." Abraham got up early in the morning and saddled his donkey. He took 2 of his young servants and his son Isaac. He had split wood for the burnt offering. He set out for the place God had directed him. On the 3rd day, he looked up and saw the place in the distance. Abraham told his 2 young servants, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I are going over there to worship. Then we'll come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and gave it to Isaac, his son, to carry. He carried the flint and the knife. The 2 of them went off together. Isaac said to Abraham, his father, "Father?" "Yes, my son?" "We have flint and wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering?" Abraham said, "Son, God will see to it that there's a sheep for the burnt offering." And they kept on walking together. They arrived at the place to which God had directed him. Abraham built an altar. He laid out the wood. Then he tied up Isaac and laid him on the wood. Abraham reached out and took the knife to kill his son. Just then, an angel of God called to him out of the heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes, I'm listening." Don't lay a hand on that boy. Don't touch him. I know how fearlessly you fear God. You didn't hesitate to place your son, your dear son, on the altar for me." Abraham looked up. He saw a ram caught by its horns in the thicket. Abraham took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham named that place God Yireh. God sees to it. That's where we get the saying, on the mountain of God, he sees to it. The angel of God spoke from the heaven a second time to Abraham. "I swear, God's sure word, because you have gone through with this and have not refused to give me your son, your dear, dear son, I'll bless you. Oh, how I'll bless you. And I'll make sure that your children flourish like the stars in the sky, like the sand on the beaches, and your descendants will defeat their enemies. All nations on the earth will find themselves blessed through your descendants because you obeyed me." So that's the verse. Thank you for listening to all that. If you stayed listening to it, if you skipped through this part, you should go back and actually listen to it. But so this story was a first mention of Jehovah Jireh, and in this version, they use Yireh, which I'm not sure, but it also translates to like Jireh, so Jehovah Jireh, the Lord provides. But before I go on a little bit, I just want to say, if you're hearing this for the first time, or you're hearing it again, you're like, whoa, like this was a really tragic story. Like he was about to kill his son for God. I think the thing that's helped me with this story is that God did the same thing for us, except he actually did it. He asked of Abraham what he did for us, except God, provided and didn't let him, follow through with it. But God did that. God gave up his son for us, and he died for us, and which is the ultimate sign and display of love. So I just keeping that in mind, that that God actually gave up his son for us, helped me when thinking about this story. The main part that stood out to me in this verse, and there's a lot of good things in this verse, but was the phrase, Abraham looked up. And I think a lot of times with us and our world and our lives, we forget to look up. We're so involved in looking down at what we're doing and looking down and inside ourselves that we forget to look up and see how God has provided for us and see how good God has been to us and what he's doing in our lives. Because we're so busy about what we're doing in our lives, we forget what God's doing in our lives. So I think when Abraham looked up, he saw the ram, which took the place of his son. And in the main in more of like the original versions of the Bible, it says that the ram was behind him. It says in the King James version, and Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram. So I thought this was interesting because he looked up, and behind him was the ram. And I tried to find this quote. I couldn't find it, but it's all about how God, you can see the miracles that God has done in your life when you look back. That only then do we see the puzzles fitting together. We can't see the future. The present we're still working on, but when we look back, we see those miracles. And so I thought of a dorky acronym for RAM is really awesome miracles. And you have to look back to find them. And you also have to look up. You have to look up and look back and see what God has done in your life and how he's provided for you. And that's what I guess lately I've just been trying to do and been getting better at doing with this whole Texas thing. And it's been amazing to see how active God has been in my life and how many little rams he's put in my path. And it's just been crazy. It's so cool to find. And I would never be aware of them if I hadn't looked up to God, and if I hadn't, prayed to him, and if I hadn't, looked back. So to give you a few examples of my rams in my life, the first one is we actually won a free 3-night stay to Austin through like this Instagram thing. And I never win stuff like that. And we won. So we were able to go to Austin for free, basically. We had to pay for flights and everything else, but we got to stay for 3 nights for free in Austin. That was in June. And it was just the biggest blessing because there we found the treehouse. And not a lot of you guys maybe know, but before we found the treehouse, which is our apartment, when we talked about, where we'd live and in a little house the little apartment we'd have, I kept calling it the Texas Treehouse. And there literally is the apartment complex that's called a treehouse. And that's where we live now. That's where God brought us to. That's where we're signed. That's where we live. And that's why it's called the Texas Treehouse, because it's always been called that. And then God provided a Texas Treehouse. It's just crazy. And then another thing is that, so I was able to surprise Ellie in August. I almost wasn't going to do it, but when I looked in the mail, I saw that a bride had wanted me for double the time, which means double the money, which means I can pay for this flight. I can do this, and I was able to stay for almost a whole week, and it was just beautiful. And I remember thinking Jehovah Jireh, God is providing for this. Another thing was Ellie getting her job. She got the job, the first job that she interviewed, and it was crazy. And we could tell that God was in it because she just had this peace about it, and we both had this security around that even if she didn't get it, that God would still provide for us. Another thing is in September, this was way before, but God provided this super cheap flight. I think it was only $80 or something round trip. I don't remember what it was, but super cheap. So I'm going back again in September, which is a big blessing. And then another thing, if you've seen the vlogs, we literally prayed for a popcorn bowl and chairs. And when we went to Goodwill, our last stop, we found 2 chairs, a popcorn bowl, a mug, a Texas tree for the tree house, and amongst like other things. I can't even remember. But so God has just been providing in our lives lately. Those are just a few things. There's obviously more things that are unrelated to Texas that God has, that I've just seen him work. And I don't doubt that he's working in your life too. You just might not be looking up, or you might not be checking behind you and seeing what he has done. And another just side note is that, sometimes God doesn't, and I don't want this to be wrong theology, but sometimes, like, I mean, how are we going to get something if we don't ask? Are you actually asking God for a miracle? I've been thinking a lot about prayer lately, and just asking him for things. It's something that he tells us to do. I listened to this podcast by the Church of the City podcast. It's week 6. You should listen to it. I'll try and link it in somewhere, but it talks about how actually, like, God asks. I can't say the word ask. God I seriously can't say it, but he wants us to ask for things. And because he's a father, he wants to give us things, but we have to ask for them. So maybe you just need to start asking God for things. Not that he's going to give them to you, but that you believe that that he provides. You believe that he's Jehovah Jireh. So asking him, you're knowing that even if you don't get specifically what you ask for, that he will provide still. But who knows? You might get exactly what you wanted, like a popcorn bowl. So I just wanted to encourage you guys to look for those little rams in your life, those really awesome miracles that are happening around you and that you might not be even aware of. I know I definitely haven't been I for a while up until like now. So yeah, I am so happy to be talking to you guys. It feels like it's been a while, but it does every week. It feels like it's been forever. So I really, like I said, I appreciate you guys. And if you're listening, I literally don't know, like, who actually is listening still. Or it's like, I mean, not that I don't really know. I whenever I think of people listening, I still think of like about like 5 people. So, and if it is 5 people, that's like still crazy. So again, if you're listening to this, I'm truly speaking to you. It just means a lot. And it's really cool that we get to talk about this stuff. So yeah, I hope that your laundry is a little bit more sorted out and that throughout this week, you just, don't feel so overwhelmed by it. And that these little rams in your life maybe help you feel comforted, and yeah, that you realize that God is providing and Jehovah Jireh. Should I end this with a song? Should I end this with my Jehovah Jireh? No, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna go. I have some laundry to do, and I can't wait to hear from you guys next week. Bye, you guys. I love you. Woo!